Newport County, Rhode Island, just outside of Providence. Zip code 00093, or as the locals call it, the 93. With its lush greens and its parks aplenty, you know you're in Quahog. Welcome to Quanversations. I'm your host, Nick, and this is your host, Kyle. Let's get into it, episode 1. I think today would be a great launching off point of the history and maybe the geography of Quahog, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start?
I think just the basics, like you said in the introduction, Quahog is in the Providence Metro, about 15 minutes out.
Yeah.
And you can get a pretty clear view of the Providence skyline from some parts of Quahog.
You can see it from the backyard of some homes on Spooner.
On the corner of Spooner and Elbridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the abandoned lot adjacent to the Little Clam preschool building.
That's right.
That's where you'll get the best one.
And I know the city pretty well. We've been a handful of times.
Mm-hmm.
We've researched it extensively for years. But I was looking at the actual legal boundaries. And
right.
you know it. I don't know if the
There are
listeners.
some oddities, yeah.
There's two glaring oddities that there's two enclaves within the city boundaries of Quahog. It's
Pretoria.
Pretoria and Ohio. And you guys can look this up at home. And there's links in the description on some literature on this. But there was one point in time in 2000. You know this. In 2000, Pretoria illegally annexed the only body of water in Ohio, the swimming pool. And the United States military eventually had to step in and make a peace treaty.
Operation Desert Clam.
And at that peace treaty, the military had to go to Pretoria, show some force, and it was the president of Pretoria, the mayor of Quahog, and LaToya Jackson, all there
That's right.
at the signing. That settled without any bloodshed, thank God. But that enclave still exists to this day, Pretoria. You can try to go through when you're there. It's just a little, I don't know, it's a little eerie going. Like, you're off of U.S. soil.
It can be unsettling, yeah.
It really, really can. But that's just the geography.
But yeah, ever since that, the peace settlement, I'd call it,
Sure.
Quahog has been on an economic upswing.
Absolutely
for
has.
sure.
Absolutely has.
As you mentioned, like the park green spaces, it was ranked 46th on the list of America's 50 best cities to live.
Not bad.
In a 2015 survey.
Okay.
Done by 247wallstreet.com.
Okay, great.
Between Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and Livonia, Michigan.
Mm-hmm. And I'd imagine it's probably gone up because they've really put the pedal to the metal on focusing on these parks and green spaces. Everywhere you go, it's lush. But I think it would be appropriate to turn the clock way, way back and talk about the founding of the city itself.
The very beginning.
There's two trains of thought, one a little bit more mystical and fun than the other. And that's probably not the real one. But we could talk about that one first because it almost seems like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
If you want to take lead, you for the longest time believed that this was the true founding. You were pretty late to the game and believing.
I think it was suspension of belief more so.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to believe because it was the more exciting story.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is with Miles Musket. Chatterbox, old Chatterbox.
Yeah. This is certainly the
an
more
apt nickname.
Fun, the more fun thing to believe.
Yeah, he would talk and talk and talk. Talk so much that he was a sailor, Miles Musket, with the nickname Chatterbox. And he was talking so much on a journey, he was thrown overboard into the Atlantic Ocean to die, to drown.
Right.
And he was saved by a talking clam who brought him to shore, which was now Quahog.
Right.
And the story does not end happily. The clam and Chatterbox, that's maybe offensive, Miles, Mr. Musket, had a little bit of a tiff, a little bit of an argument. There's not too much written historical records on this, but the clam went back out to sea, furious, ashamed, brokenhearted, and they never spoke again.
Right.
So Miles is alone on Quahog, and he finds a woman. He finds a woman. I believe her name was Jane. And they procreated. They created a kid, Jane Musket, nee O'Donnell, I believe.
Okay.
And that child, unfortunately, died very young. And the reason we know this is because his tomb was robbed in 2013. A family exhumed the tomb in hopes of finding treasure. Another train of thought is that Quahog comes from the Algonquin Quanotkontong, meaning black fish. That black fish being the tautog fish that's oftentimes found in behind rocks and little, brambling brooks.
Right. Common misconception. A lot of people assume Quahog is translated to quahog, the bivalve mollusk.
That's right. That's right, which is on the flag.
Right.
Which is on the flag. Vexologists rank that in the top 30 city flags.
I mean, don't get me wrong, quahogs, the clams, are very important to the city's economy.
Sure.
Like aquamarine, clam farming.
Yeah.
Like that brings in a lot of money annually.
But the city it wasn't a talking clam that saved a sailor that founded the city. It was Griffin Peterson.
Yep, and this is way back in the 17th century, as early as the 1630s.
Yeah, there's no exact date, circa 1630s perhaps. Griffin, a stout man, oftentimes wearing green pants, white shirt, brown hair, and a three-pointed hat. A classic-looking...
Common garb of that
Yeah,
era.
a classic-looking colonial gentleman. He was in England and in love with a high society woman.
Lady Redbush.
Lady Redbush. And he was on his way to marry her in England. But it turns out, Kyle, he wasn't the only one with eyes for Lady Redbush.
Of course.
King Stuart II.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes. And King Stuart swooped in and almost claimed prima nocta.
Yeah.
It's a little crass, but he wanted Lady Redbush for himself. He's the king. What does he do? He exiles Griffin.
Yeah.
He exiles Griffin Peterson to the New World. Griffin Peterson makes it to the New World, and he starts Quahog as a white supremacy colony.
And that is the harsh reality, and it gets harsher.
It does get harsher.
When he first arrived, a portion of the land that is now Quahog was purchased from the Narragansett Indian tribe.
That's right.
But another portion of what is now Quahog was obtained from the Narragansett Indians.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it.
That's one. That's the most PG way to put it, and I appreciate you doing that. But history in general is bloody. It's unfair. It's cruel, and we can't really beat around the bush when you talk about this.
Right. They obtained it via violent, one-sided wooing.
Yeah. That's, again, you're still tiptoeing that line.
I am. Griffin Peterson and his men raped the Narragansett Indians.
Every one of them with a smile on their face. Yeah.
And that's how they obtained the land that is now Quahog.
That's right.
And started the settlement.
And that's where you can understand why people want to believe the talking clam story.
Right.
And it's like you can't tell the kids exactly how it was. So I think it's perfectly fine to fib until they're, able to comprehend the facts. But yeah, Peterson lived in Quahog, founded Quahog, and he found a lover there to get over his lost love, Lady Redbush, a woman named Meg, I'm sure short for Megan, and he treated her poorly, to say the least.
Yeah.
He treated her like she was less than a possession, like something that was given to him that he didn't really want. And you could tell you can spin this to be romantic because he would never love somebody the way he loved Lady Redbush. Right. Meg, she was described as plain, dull, and a nag.
Even for the era.
Even for the era, she was described as plain, which you'd have to imagine would be, I hate to do this, ghastly. And he did end up marrying her, and he started, he was successful. He was successful outside of his marriage life.
A lot of ventures.
Yeah, but while Griffin is setting up this settlement in the New World and doing well at it, let's go back to England. King Stuart is married to Lady Redbush, and she presumes Griffin Peterson is dead.
Right, yeah. He was exiled. He had to have died.
He had to have died in this land of savages.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart, the king, grows disinterested in his wife. He hardly pays attention to her. They, by today's standards, had a fully open relationship.
Wow.
Zero jealousy on his end. He just wanted her, or maybe he just didn't want Griffin to have her.
Mm-hmm.
So she is doing her own thing, and she forms a relationship with the court jester. And the court jester, as a lot of people know, was the one that proved to her that Griffin Peterson was still alive in the New World.
Okay, that's right.
He showed her a newspaper article from the Colonial Tribune of Griffin Peterson on
Of Griffin.
Yes,
Yeah.
on the front
He
cover,
was on the front page.
showing his butt, showing his bare butt. He was
That's right.
he was intoxicated, showing his butt in what is now the present day Drunken Clam.
Mm-hmm. The old pub.
The old pub. And that fills her with joy, fear of having to go find him, her heartbreak it opened up all these old wounds. And you have to feel for her in this situation. She escapes King Stuart to find Griffin Peterson in the New World, which is beautiful. When she gets there, she finds out he's married. Dun dun.
Yeah.
What happens?
Back then, the legal proceedings were too complex
Yeah.
to appropriately get a divorce.
Well, people were so godly back then that divorce is a mortal sin.
Right. I guess you can say Griffin found a loophole, and, well, he took his wife Meg out back and shot her with a gun.
He shot her with a gun in the backyard. He was such a prominent, important, and respected figure, nobody asked any questions.
No.
So he shoots Meg.
Completely hushed.
Unbelievable.
Right.
So he shoots his wife, marries Lady Redbush. They live in harmony for 6 months. It took 6 months for King Stuart to realize she had even left. But when he found
crazy.
out, but when he found out,
Yeah.
gather my armies, I'm going over there.
Now it's war.
Now it's war. And Kyle, this is one of my favorite passages. When he landed his troops on the shores of Quahog, they were chanting this: "There once was a peaceful town called Quahog, where people lived in harmony. They never had no kind of trouble. There was no hint of misery. Then all at once the trouble started, a pack of murderers and thieves. Like swarms of locusts they descended, their aim to make townfolk flee." And their aim was true. The townfolk were in a panic to see a much stronger, more advanced military force on their peaceful shores.
Right.
And so what do? They rat out Lady Redbush.
They do.
And we will get to what happened after a quick ad break.
Today's episode is proudly brought to you by Fargus's Wacky World of Mayhem. Love fun, love mayhem, then you'd be an absolute fool to not swing by Fargus's Wacky World of Mayhem. This indoor fair is unlike any other. See attractions such as Microwaveception, where Quahog's own Randall Fargus will pop a small bag of popcorn in a tiny microwave inside of a larger microwave, inside of a larger microwave, 5 microwaves total.
Wow.
Check all this out and more right outside of Quahog Heights. Use code QHOGHISTORY for a buy one, get one free admittance.
Not a bad deal. All right, back to the history. So Kyle, the townsfolk are so rattled that they rat out one of their very own, Lady Redbush, to the king. The king gets her. Long story short, he captures her. But while he was so focused on that, Griffin captured the king's top lieutenant. And now it is a standoff. They are ready to kill, knives at the throat, gun at the temple, ready to kill the lieutenant and Lady Redbush out of anger, bloodlust, rage. But then a miracle happens. They both agree enough is enough when it comes to the bloodshed. Enough is enough when it comes to the violence. let's end this with...
Let's settle it with a talent show.
Yeah, with a talent show. And the king, being the king, says, I'll go first. And what does he do? He steals his court jester's jokes and performs comedy.
Word for word.
Kyle, it works. The crowd is laughing. The court jester who was on Peterson's side was livid when he saw the king doing his set. And he was even more livid when people were laughing.
Yeah. That's his work.
That's his work stolen by the king. Mm-hmm. Peterson comes out with a group of men. A slave, a paraplegic, a sailor with no arms and no legs, and Mort the Jew. It's a ragtag bunch. And they say, hello, everybody. We are the Quahog colonists. Are you ready to rock? Eruption from the crowd. They perform a musical number. And as it's happening, as the seconds are passing, the king starts to panic. He knows it's over. It is so impressive. It is so well organized. The king says, you can have her. You can have her.
She's yours.
She's yours. Look at what you did. And they lived out the rest of their lives. She died at the age of 30 in pure bliss and happiness. And that's the abridged version of that. And that's actually the true founding of Quahog.
Right. Griffin Peterson has to be the most famous, historic, notable Quahog residents of all time. He's the one who started it all. A carousel of memorable, dramatic, theatrical moments. Mm-hmm. He would be the one. That brings me to who are the other notable residents of Quahog?
Yeah.
And there are several.
Yeah.
I think we should get into some of those.
Yeah, by all means.
I wanted to start with someone who I think has done maybe more for the world and Quahog than any of the others on this list, and that's Vietnam War veteran Ida Davis.
Yeah, an absolute legend in their own right.
And I'm glad you used there, but the pronoun is now her.
No kidding.
Ida Davis.
I wanted to tread lightly.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So Ida Davis, born.
For the listeners, we're about to dead name. We know it's purely historical context, but go ahead.
To be historically accurate, Ida Davis was born Daniel Quagmire in 1931. The now transsexual former United States Navy officer and recipient of the U.S. military's highest decoration, the Medal of Honor, for her actions in the Vietnam War. And I think Ida is the only trans woman in North America with a Vietnam War Medal of Honor.
Yeah, she would have to be.
She was an A-4 Skyhawk pilot operating off the USS Ticonderoga.
Yeah, impressive.
So Davis wasn't born nor raised in Quahog, but she did undergo her sex change operation there.
She was born again in Quahog. She only existed in Quahog. Ida herself.
That's correct.
Yes.
And she's been a big figure in the community ever since. She has been honored at Quahog's Officer Club for her service. She's also a regular member at the Quahog Historic Society. She's on floats at parades.
That's right. I mean, her son, I believe, is a pilot to this day because of her inspiration.
A mother of three. She has 3 children who are also prominent members of the Quahog community.
Okay.
A daughter, Brenda, and 2 sons, Gary and Glenn. And that family is just really important.
They are a keystone of the community. I know, I don't know personally, but I've seen Glenn on Spooner, and he is always the kindest, sharing. He's proud to be a Quagmire.
Glenn was with us for the brewery tour, and then he took us to what was that Swedish bakery?
Fjord
Vanderpoog.
Yeah.
Run by Fjord Vanderpoog.
Of course.
We got Klodkaka and
my God,
cake. And
I still think about it to this day.
Glenn insisted he would pay, and we didn't let him do that, but he was as good as a host as you can be.
Absolutely. And I honestly think he is well on his way to being a notable person as well in Quahog.
Do you think he could make the list one day?
One day. Who else do you have on the list?
Dr. Cecil Perchfield.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
I knew this was coming. Yeah.
The now deceased child psychologist, and he earned prominence in the field of child psychology for his psychosexual analyses of children under the age of 3.
Yeah.
Particularly for his evaluations and assessments on one local Quahog infant.
That's right.
Stuart Griffin.
That's right.
I think it was the first infant ever psychoanalyzed sexually to that degree.
My God. Do I know who's next?
Knowing me,
Yeah.
you might be able to guess.
Is it
Christian Aftershave?
Yeah.
The very controversial criminal defense lawyer
Yeah.
and author from Quahog.
Yeah, you might catch flack for this one.
Well, I mean, regardless of how you feel about him on a moral level, he did represent some very high-profile defendants. Joe Biden,
Yeah.
Charlie Gervais, and even Glenn Quagmire, who we just mentioned.
Wow.
For,
Full circle moment there.
trafficking reptiles. Yeah.
Sure.
Do you want me to... Let's go to something more uplifting.
Sure.
Omar North Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Omar is the Islamic Indian American schoolboy at Martin Mall Elementary School.
Yeah.
Which we also had the pleasure of touring. And another notable figure in Quahog would have to be Billy Finn,
Yeah.
the British dolphin.
That's right. That's right.
He lives off the coast of Quahog.
I think you can still count it as Quahog.
Right. One of the first marine mammals to be fluent in English.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe the first. Maybe the first.
Probably the first.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been done since or before.
I think there's a goldfish outside of D.C.
Okay.
And I think that's where we'll leave everybody today. Episode 2 will be cuisine of Quahog.
We'll get into the food, yeah.
Top 4 favorite restaurants right now. Go.
Oh, man, top 4.
Yeah.
Put me on the spot. I go with Founding Fathers.
Have to.
What else? Yeah, Founding Fathers at 1. What do you have at 2?
Luigi's. It's got to be Luigi's. It's not my 1-1.
I don't hate that.
But you know what you're going to get every
It's consistent.
time.
Yeah.
And then, can I throw in a chain? LGBTQ Fridays. That's my 2.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it is so consistent,
blame you,
so
yeah.
well priced, and the main waitress there, stunning. She's dating a dog.
That's right.
So like you have a chance. And then number 1.
Big Pete's House of Munch.
Yes, dude. So good.
It's gotta be.
But that's what we'll discuss next week on Quanversations. Thank you, guys.